Welcome to Her Wealth Unscripted. We're your hosts, Susan Jones
and Sara Gilsheimer. We believe financial decisions are most powerful when they're made with intention and grounded in what matters most to you.
This is a space for real conversations about money, life, and the moments that change everything.
Because it's more than numbers, it's the life they make possible.
Hello and welcome to Her Wealth Unscripted. Today we're joined by Janet Diaz. I'm so excited to have you here, Janet.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Janet spent more than 2 decades leading and developing high-performing teams in the IT industry. And then she made a pivot that surprised even her. After years of navigating pressure, performance, and the quiet cost of constantly showing up for everyone else, she followed a deeper calling and co-founded Soulcraft Journeys. Her work now centers on something most of us have rarely been offered, the chance to step away. Through nervous system healing and transformative travel experiences, Janet guides women to interrupt the patterns, environments, and rhythms that keep them stuck and create real space for renewal. Growing up as the daughter of a veteran with PTSD, she learned early what it means to live inside dysregulated nervous system. The understanding now shapes everything she does. Janet believes the most powerful reset doesn't happen on a productivity app. It happens when you physically leave the familiar and finally have room to remember who you are beneath the stress. Well, Janet, we're so excited to have you here. And I have to say, when we first, were introduced and I went to your website, you have a beautiful website, and I'm so interested in learning just more about you and your journey and also kind of where you got to where you are and what you're doing now. And then we'll dig into that a little bit more. But if you wouldn't mind, maybe just starting us off with how did this happen? How did you get here?
Well, I joined the Entreprenista community, and that's where you and I connected. I joined because I co-founded with my younger sister, Yvette, Soulcraft Journeys. So that's how this connection came about. And, wealth comes in so many different shapes, not just monetary. Wealth is your health, is the capacity that you have to not only nurture yourself, but also nurture your family, your community, others around you. So I think that it's very well aligned with your audience.
Yeah, for sure. And when I think of IT leadership and what that looks like, and then I think to nervous system healing and then, these curated travel experiences, I can't say I would automatically line up those two. So maybe tell us about that too. How did you get from IT leadership into doing what you're doing now?
Oh my gosh, it's a great question because on the surface, it doesn't look like there's like a chasm between those two, right? Once you dig deeper, you realize that they're so connected. And I'll tell you why as I share my story. I'll start by saying that something that is true for a lot of us, and that is once you have seen something, it's very hard to unsee it. It's very hard to pretend that truth that you just saw, that you realize doesn't exist, right? In true Capricorn fashion, because I'm a Capricorn, one of my superpowers is having an analytical mind and a curious mind. And I'm always questioning. I have a lot of the why energy, right? So one of the questions that was always at the forefront for me was, why does rest feel different for me than other people? Like rest didn't feel to me what rest was doing for other people. So I started questioning, okay, why is that? So here's the portion where I have to go back to my beginnings, right? Because stress is a lot. You would think that it's more about an emotional state, and it's really a physiological state that your body is in. So when I decided to slow down, my body responded to that. And what I discovered was that I had been in a chronic state of hypervigilance for all my life, up until the point that I discovered, right? And I started to make changes, to start taking steps towards breaking that pattern. If I'm allowed, I want to go back to my childhood. And as you said in your introduction, I am a daughter of a Vietnam veteran with severe PTSD. I have two sisters, and we very early on learned a unique set of skills that we were particularly not asked to subscribe to, but it's what it is. We learned how to read rooms early on. The environment at home was very much walking on eggshells. We learned how to manage energies. We learned to perform. We learned how to function. So for us, the first place where we learn about safety is at home. So at home for us meant functioning. Safety was not rest. Safety was not physically softening. Safety was you have to be on because you don't know when the shoe is going to drop next, what it's going to trigger my dad, what's going to trigger also my mom. And so that was the sort of environment that we grew up in. So when I say that we had that unique set of skills, it really helped actually for me to excel in the tech environment. And this is where we're bridging those two things that you might not think that align, but ironically, what that wiring, right, that I had actually served me incredibly well in throughout the majority of my life, because the majority of my life has been focused on work and my life in tech. So working in tech meant high-stake environments, very fast-paced. You have to be on all the time, right? There's high pressure. So that's why I actually was thriving. I did very well in the tech environment because it was what I knew. It was so easy to step into that because I felt actually, oh, okay, I fit in so well. This is exactly what I do 24/7 all the time. So it was that sort of safety, if you will. But, the body, that's your mind noticing that, but your body notices something different. And when there was a disconnection throughout a lot of my years where my mind was that focused on productivity, delivering more, all of those things that are associated with the tech environment. But my body was like, oh, like bringing out the receipts, like, okay, you have been chronically stressed throughout your entire life. I started developing autoimmune disorders. And that question of why my, a weekend, 3-day weekend, which we so much look forward to in a corporate environment, they were not enough. Nothing was enough because my body was not softening. My body was not letting go of the tension because it didn't know how to. Safety for me equated being on, right? So all these things my body started telling me, giving me notices, right? My body started talking to me. When you're so focused on delivering, not only in your professional life, but also in your personal life. I have two daughters. I've been married for a long time, and you're completely focused on what's ahead of you and what's on your day to day. It's your family, your work, what it is that you need to deliver. My body just started telling me and showing me how toxic that was in the form of autoimmune disorders. My immune system was actually doing what my nervous system was doing all along, which was to be on high alert all the time, right? And that's what a lot of autoimmune disorders are. It's your body. They call it attacking itself. And to a certain extent, that is true, but it's also being on all the time. And when people ask me, how does it feel to have autoimmune disorders? It feels like your body's on all the time. So imagine you have the flu and you feel drained, you feel exhausted. Your body needs to recover from all of these things that are going internally. You typically take a day off and you rest and etc. And then the body heals itself. But having autoimmune disorders mean that there is no point of slowing down, letting your body heal itself. It's on all the time. So that's when I started looking into and diving into understanding the nervous system, because I understood that what was happening to me, it was more than just an emotional state. It was a physiological state. And that's where I started learning about the nervous system and how it forms throughout your life, how it shows, it has its own language, how it speaks to you, and ultimately what you can do to reset it and regulate it and align with it versus competing with it, or, just ignoring it, or, doing the total opposite of that.
Janet, was that when then you decided that because of your history and that kind of loop that you were stuck in, that you were going to kind of shift your professional focus also?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me back to when I said, once you see
Yep.
something, it's very hard not to see it. And that's the truth that I learned about, that these were patterns that were built throughout my life. And those patterns were serving me, being successful on the outside, but they were not serving me as the person, right? Because we are more than just what we show. Several identities that we have, one of which is a professional, right? There are several identities that we all have: mother, daughter, sister, friend, professional, part of a community, a teacher, or all these identities that we have. So that was one of the truth that I realized, that it was just not serving me. And it also made me realize that there were signs along the way that were trying to show themselves to me, letting me know that that was not the best for me. And I was disconnected from my inner voice. I was just, I'm not going to listen to that right now. This is the priority. This is what I need to focus on. And this is it, right? And, one of the things that typically gets put aside, or, in the back burner, is yourself, your health. And when I say yourself, it's like who you really are. It's not none of the identities that I mentioned before. It's who you are at the core. Like, who's that person? You are a unique person. When you start acquiring all these identities, which we do, right? It's part of the society that we live in. It's inevitable to continue to function. You have to prioritize. And what typically, as a woman, what is typically your priority? Our children, right? In my case, I had been the main breadwinner in my household. So that was it. So I was not paying attention to my health. I was not paying attention to any of that. So when I started to realize that, hey, something needs to change, that's when I pivoted. So I started walking towards that healing that I needed, that truth of really part of the healing that was needed to reconnect with my soul. And I knew who I was at the core, but I had been shutting her voice for so long. And I'm not intending to become emotional at all. But when you start to listen and to reconnect with your inner wisdom and your inner voice, something magical happens. And it happened for me. And that's why I want to make, so my contribution to the world would be to impact one person at a time, their lives, so that not only their own life can improve, but the life of their family, of the community, of the city, of, everywhere where they show up.
I love that, Janet. That is beautifully said. And I think, you are one of many women who, are super successful on the outside. We've talked to multiple women on this podcast already who have been in similar situations where, by everyone's standards on the outside, they've been super successful, with the title and the paycheck, but internally something was missing. And I think, our society is so grounded on instant gratification and constant busyness, and yours was exacerbated by how you grew up. So I think that's amazing that you before it was too late, figured out how to find that true inner voice. And so I know, the premise really of Soulcraft Journeys is this principle that your body can get to that more calm, emotional, physical state in new environments where some of those stressors and, old loops that we talked about aren't activated necessarily because you're in a new environment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The environment that we're in, it's very conditioned, right? I am right now in my office, which is the office that I have for the past 15 years since I moved to this home, has been filled with tension, pressure, has been filled with uncomfortable conversations, because sometimes you need to have those in the workplace. It's been filled with, yes, it has also been filled with joy, because this is not a dig to corporate environment or tech or anything like that. This is the perspective of how I got to where I got. But this environment where I'm in, this is the energy that this office has. What did I do when I started saying and looking into pivoting into what I really am here to do? I put a desk in my bedroom, and it's a tiny desk. It's half of my desk in this office, but it's placed in front of my bay windows where I can see trees, where I can hear birds, where I can see greenery. And in that tiny desk, I have been happier than I have ever been in the 15 years that I've lived in this particular home. Daily in this office, in that tiny desk, only by changing my environment, right? I'm the same person, right? When I walk out of this office and I go into my tiny desk, which is, it's such a refuge for me and a source of joy. It's the environment. So I think it's so important for us to take ourselves out of the normal environments where we hold so many of those identities, right? Because what's my identity here? My identity is the professional, the main breadwinner, the go-getter, the leader, the coach, innovator. All these identities that I have here are different than what I have over there. When I have the identity that I have in front of my tiny desk is that of a person that is building something meaningful for others. So the energy shifts. So it is so important to change the environment. When I move into my tiny desk, my old patterns don't exist. My old identities don't exist. So what's the capacity that I have to be in that place? It's different. I'm joyful. I'm more curious. I am more innovative. I am more untuned and in alignment with my inner self, because I'm out of the patterns that this office holds. So I think that's true for everyone.
That's so interesting. And I think I've read a lot about just what our environment does to us and sometimes, the benefit of changing the environment. And so like you've really seen that with yourself too. And it sounds like it's also at the core of Soulcraft Journeys and what you help women with.
Yes.
And, one of the groups that Sarah and I are most passionate about is women who were in a journey, a season of life that is kind of filled with change. And so whether that's, getting a divorce, having a loss, being widowed. So maybe talk to us a little bit if you had a woman that was in that season of life and was interested in scheduling a vacation, or I'm not sure if we even call it a vacation, but in creating a trip with you. What does that look like?
I think you framed it beautifully. It is in those transitions, seasons of change, where there's the growth for potential is at its highest. It comes with uncertainty, right? Because you're stepping into a new phase in your life, but that uncertainty carries so much potential for growth. So those are the type of women that we serve through Soulcraft Journeys. It's the woman that is that is going through a divorce, just got divorced. She's like, I don't remember who I am, right? Before I got married, because that's another identity that we have when we get married. It's like you're no longer you're with this other person who it's the person, right? Has their own goals and inner workings and everything else. So the woman that it's just got through a divorce, the woman that it's becoming an empty nester. And I'm one of those. Come August, I'm an empty nester. So this season I'm able to help others going through changes because I am one of them, right? And I think that I say this too when I have the discovery calls with the women that are wanting to learn more about Soulcraft Journeys is to be able to share my story and say, hey, I am not a religious person. I am not a spiritual guru. I am you in a different setting. I'm trying to get over grief. I am trying to navigate this transition of closing one chapter that has been with me for so long in terms of my career in tech. So I'm able to connect with them because I am one of them, right? And so women who are going through divorce, empty nesters, who have aging parents, right? Who are thinking about fulfillment in their lives. They no longer feel that, and that's also the beauty of life, right? That we're always growing but who realize that, that no longer is serving me. I need to figure out something different because since that no longer is serving me, but I don't know. And the answer, it's not someone else does not have that answer. Like I do not have the answers for anyone. The answers lie within us. But in order to connect with our inner voice, with our inner wisdom, you have to neurologically step away from those patterns that you have on a daily basis, which is why intentional travel is so transformational, because it takes you away from those identities, from those patterns, and this is has been neurologically studied and proven that this is true. And those breakthroughs in terms of connecting to tune out, the noise is no longer there. There's no pressure. And within what we do with the Soulcraft Journeys experiences is we handle everything for you so that you don't have to be your mentor workload. You don't have to do anything. We do everything for you. And at the same time, you own your experience. What we really do is create that space for you to reconnect to who you are. You're going to have so many moments of, this is me. I remember me. This is me. And you are able to reconnect. So when you come back from a Soulcraft Journeys experience, it shows up as you're able to sleep better immediately. Immediately. You're able to have more clarity in your decision making. You are able to put up the boundaries that are necessary to maintain your self-care, because that's another thing that we need to continue doing. I think that's a whole other conversation in which how women have been conditioned to put ourselves, last, right? But that's how it shows up. It's magical.
How long are the average experiences that you help clients experience? How do you you help them experience? How long do most people, because it's probably not enough to say like a 3-day weekend would be transformational enough, right? So what's the average for most people?
Minimal 4 days. It's minimal to be able to really break through and not only start listening to your inner wisdom, but to have like a plan, right? To carry that over. Because yes, I mean, we've all taken vacations. It's wonderful, right? We're able to relax somewhat. And I say somewhat because in my case, it's just on all the time. For the most of my life, it was just on. In order to, after tapping into that, your inner voice, you need to come up with a plan. Like the next step is rising, right? And we have in Soulcraft Journeys, all of our experiences are part of a 4 phase. The first one is grounding. The second one is releasing, letting go of everything that doesn't serve you. The other one is reconnecting. And then the last one is rise. And within the rise, it's the part where this is where you go back to your environment, but you have a plan. You have a plan on how to show up differently because your energy is different too. Your energy, it's no longer depleted, it's full, which is why your mental capacity, it's wider.
Janet, in those kind of different, groups that you just talked about, those different areas, is that something where when someone comes to you that you help them decide where they should be, or is it something that's meant that you kind of do a whole program? Can we talk a little bit about that?
It's a little bit of both, which is why I have it on the website, right? And when a woman comes and signs up for a Soulcraft journey, and we call them journeys, they're women's wellness retreats focused on wellness, right? They come with knowing at least that there's something that's going to happen within the journey, right? Nothing is going to surprise them. Well, let me not say nothing is going to surprise them, because there's a lot of things that surprise them, but good things, right? So they know that there's grounding. They know that there's somatic body movements involved in the experience that's going to help them release tension, release of things, that mental workload, release that. There's going to be practices that will help them reconnect to their inner voice, right? Because in order to, you have to create that space to be able to connect to your inner voice that's, within you. So that happens after you let go of that baggage. And then after that, you can, once you have that energy, once you have that mental clarity, you can start formulating how you're going to show up differently within your life. So and to answer your question, when we do the journeys within the United States, they're 4 days, 3 nights. Some of them are 4 nights. We have 3 different type of journeys. We have an awakened journey, which is for women who are really, really in need of reconnecting to their inner voice. We have a restore journey, which is when you really need to be able to let go in order to create the space to restore yourself and reconnect to your inner wisdom. And then we have the explore journeys, which is more focused on expansion and adventure and joy and play. And so depending on the journey type, it's what's really going to dictate the length, but that's typically what the length of a journey. We have had international journeys that, because they're international, we do extend them to 5 nights. It served them well in the sense that not only are they connecting with themselves and releasing a lot of the things that no longer serve them, but their mind is getting filled with also cultural experiences and seeing what, how other people do other things and the possibilities. I think one of the most transformational journeys are the ones that we do overseas because of that. It just opens up so many different possibilities for how to live differently, if that's what you're looking for, right? Nothing is forced. None of the journeys are meant to fix anyone. Our journeys are to create the space so that women, during those transitional moments in their lives, can go to consult with themselves, be able to listen to their inner voice so that they can proceed and show up differently, their energy repleted, and with that clarity and that capacity to move ahead with what's next, which is uncertain, but at least you're coming from that place of your energy has been restored. You're feeling more certain about you. And when you are connected to your inner voice and your inner wisdom, you are capable of doing so many things. You're capable of going through so many situations because you're grounded, you're strong into who you are.
This sounds like something we would love talking with clients about. We're really passionate about making sure people align their money, having intention behind their money and making sure that their money is used to help them live the best life possible. And it sounds like this would be, a great use of funds and maybe, encouraging a woman, especially in that transitionary period of time, help them build this into their, what we call our financial independence plan, and show that, what impact it would be financially to do this. And then to know that, from an emotional, psychological perspective, the possibilities are endless.
And the alignment there is that you are prioritizing yourself consciously, right? And when you're making solid financial decisions, you are choosing yourself purposely. So that is the alignment. And when you are, again, focused on knowing that there is nothing ahead if you don't take care of yourself first, there's magic. There's magic that happens there when you are prioritizing yourself. And that does not mean not prioritizing other things in your life, right? One thing, it's not mutually exclusive to prioritize yourself and prioritize others. That's not, we are beings with so much breadth and capacity for everything that's good, for love, for, it's like having, you have a child and you feel that, oh my gosh, I've never felt this kind of love before. And then you welcome a second child and it's not like your love is getting divided. It expands. Yeah. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, I have this capacity of love that I didn't know was even capable. Yeah. Right? So the same thing happens when you prioritize yourself. You prioritize yourself. What? You align your financial situation. Right? You align your self-care, and everything else follows after that. When you prioritize yourself, you are prioritizing the well-being of your family, of your community, right? Of the places where we live, the places where we show up. So it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, that really is true. I have to laugh though, Janet. Your the story did make me kind of chuckle. I have 4 kids, and when I had my fourth, the nurse asked if it was my first, and I was surprised because I was not a young mother, and so I said no, it was my fourth, and she said, "Oh, you just seem so excited," and we laughed because I'm like, I found my fourth just as exciting as my first. Yes, you're right. Like you expand. You're not just like you're tracked. So that's.
Yes.
So Janet, this has been so interesting, and I think again, I think it's something that a lot of us don't think about. I think there's a thought that, oh, you can take a vacation and unwind a little bit, but that idea that really scheduling one of these intentional journeys and just the transformative effect it could have on your well-being. So as we're getting ready to close out here, for someone who's listening and they're like, wow, a lot of what Janet said really resonated with me in terms of even that nervous system, that memory pattern that I've been on edge for so long. Is there one thing that you could tell our listeners that they could do this week that would maybe kind of help them down that journey of kind of rediscovering who they are, like you have?
One is the thing. Wherever you work, if you work, change your work environment. Go to a cafe. Go to a park. Go outside of your home. You don't even have to leave your home. Go to your backyard, right? Changing just one little thing can make such a difference. And then what I would encourage you to do is notice how your body responds, right? Because yes, there's a lot that's happening that it's subconscious, but your body starts to soften and you feel like less stress. So that's, I would say, one of the easiest things to do. Just change where you normally work, or if you have an activity that you do, if you play an instrument, switch, go to another room, as long as you're switching your environment. Another easy thing to start breaking those old patterns and start making you comfortable with possibilities, because that's what it is, right? We don't know what the possibilities. Change your coffee. If you like super dark, roasted espresso, try hazelnut or caramel, or, just start leaving room for possibilities in any way. And that's just, I just came up with a coffee because I love coffee, to drink coffee. But
no, but that's a really good call out that it can be something, relatively small,
yes,
but just to kind of challenge
yes,
yourself to start making those little changes. I think that's great.
And it will open up the possibilities, because once you do, you start again having capacity for different things, and you're exploring, right? You're leaving room for what could happen. And always think positive. Always think that, there are great things coming ahead for you that you might not know. You don't know what the great things that are coming for you today. It's April 27th, 2026. You don't know where you're going to be April 27th, 2027. Right. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. I can tell you that.
That's great.
It's going to be amazing. Takes one little thing at a time.
Yeah, no, that's such good advice. So Janet, for anyone who would like to reach out to you and maybe book their own journey, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
There's 2 ways. They can email me directly, Janet Diaz, Diaz, at soulcraft-journeys.com. That is my personal email. Or they can go online to the Soulcraft Journeys website, soulcraft-journeys.com, and apply to join the community. Because what we're doing with Soulcraft Journeys is actually we're building a community of women who are recognizing that being intentional about their decisions, including getting out of the known elements, it's so powerful. So you will join the community there. We'll reach out to you very shortly with an email, and then we can schedule a call and continue the conversation. I love to talk. I don't know if you know, if you've noticed, but I love to talk. And I have to thank my dad for that, because my mom is very introverted, but my dad, he's very extroverted. So, like everything in life, there's pros and
Yep.
cons. And, a con that we got from him, we also got a very good, extroverted, love to talk, love to connect. I think more than talk, it's connection. That's what does it for me. It's a connection, connecting with women directly. So, and honoring their story.
Well, that is wonderful. And thanks again, Janet. I mean, this has been, again, just really interesting. And I think also a great example that it's more than numbers, it's the life they make possible. Thanks for listening.